Welcome to the Kevinish Quick Take here at Craft Beer Co. After Kevin's 1-0 win over Leeds United at Cottage, we are now renaming it. I am joined by Jack Kevins. Hello.
Hello, Sammy. How you doing? I'm really glad I didn't have to do that because your one doesn't work anywhere near as well.
No, I was pretty much the whole way back from Cottage just now. I was trying to think, does Kevin James work? No, it doesn't work. We'll stick with Jack Kevins.
Kevin James is definitely a bloke.
Well, yes.
He's not. It might be Dan James's dad, actually.
A really, really bad match of football,
Yeah.
decided by one of the weirdest own goals I can remember for a long time. And we've seen a few down the years at Cottage. I've got to stop
You
calling
might
it.
stop this now. Yeah.
I'll take it. That's all I'll say is I'll take it.
That's what I said after the game, right? It was very much it wasn't great. And that might be doing it a service, if I'm honest. Like, it's one of those games. I was texting a friend of mine who does the Leeds podcast during the game, and he was like, "This is diabolical." I was like, "I feel like that's doing it a service." I was like, "This is abysmal, like absolutely abysmal from start to finish from both teams." But you know, you take those when you get them. It's been a difficult couple of weeks for us, obviously, ahead of this in the season. We're obviously frustrated by what happened at the bridge, frustrated by some of the decisions against Manchester United. I think we can even be slightly frustrated about some of the decisions at Brighton. We didn't deserve anything today. We've ended up with 3 points. And look, is it karma? No, because it wasn't like a decision that went our way or anything like that. And I don't think it was karma against Leeds, who were fine. But, you take those 3 points when they come, and ultimately that's what's happened today.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a conservative lineup from Marco. I think we all knew that Chukwueze wouldn't be in the starting 11, but he wasn't even in the squad. Yeah. Kevin wasn't in the starting lineup. It was still Sessegnon, not Robinson. Look, it's Marco Silva. I listened to yourself and Elizabeth on the Thursday Club, and I just feel like Marco is always quite conservative. There was a great comment on Instagram when the lineup came out. Someone that said we could sign Mbappe and Marco would leave him on the bench for a month just to settle in. It is just kind of his way not to put someone straight into the firing line. And it showed because it was an awful first half and symptomatic of Fulham post-international break.
Yeah, we were turgid, right? And as were Leeds, let's be very clear. Like, this wasn't a game where we've smashed and grabbed a 1-0 in terms of they deserved it and we didn't. Neither team deserved anything, right? That's fundamentally where I've been on that game. They defended quite well, so did we. Like, so if you're going to argue in that regard, then I don't think there was much between the two teams in that sense. I think what was frustrating was that I didn't think Samuel Chukwueze would start. I was kind of like 50-50 on whether he'd be in the squad. He only got 12 minutes for Nigeria over the course of this. So if he played 60 and 60, I think maybe he goes on the bench. Yeah. But I wondered if Marco would go with a team that included the players that he'd had for the international break. That was why I thought that Kevin might start, why I thought that Smith Rowe might start, why I thought that Adama might start. And obviously he's gone with tried and trusted, pretty much the same lineup that we've seen in the last couple of weeks. Harry Wilson starting in front of Timmy Castagna was the only change, right? So there wasn't loads in terms of like anything to grab onto early doors. And we wondered if Wilson and Muniz might, make a mockery of the fact that, Leeds wanted both of them over in the summer. Harry came quite close with a free kick at one point. It wasn't Rodrigo Muniz's best game. I don't think he worked hard. He kind of battled. He was left kind of alone against two strikers. And look, it's the first time I think for me that Josh King was okay first half. The first time, and I'm not going out there to criticise Josh as a young player. This is going to happen. It's not a critique, but I thought the game passed him by a little bit. And I wonder if we see Emil Smith Rowe in the 10 in the next game. And look, I think that's a good thing. There should be rotation. There should be, the time for Josh to come in and out of the team this year. But I do think that he also needs to feel like he's being pushed, and that bad performances. That's too much of a misnomer. But performances where you're not affecting the game. And I thought Smith Rowe was excellent when he came on. I'm not going to roll in the same way that you might be given that opportunity to in the Championship, say. You've got to earn your spot and you've got to keep your spot. And I think that we probably learned a little bit today that when there's not a player who's going to take on someone and really go at them, we feel a little bit static. And I think that was maybe my frustration with Fulham for the first 60 minutes. It just felt like everything was quite telegraphed, quite predictable. And, that can happen. And that was one of the reasons we spent so long talking about signings and why they were so important for the team, because it means that Fulham are less predictable. Not because we're like, oh, the squad isn't good enough or anything like that. It's more kind of like, can you mix it up? Can you give the team something different to think about? And I think that today Fulham showed that if we hadn't made any signings, we would have been quite predictable for the entire 90 minutes of games at times.
This Fulhamish Quick Take is brought to you by My Kind of Cruise, the world's first cruise booking app and website. And what better escape from the upcoming cold winter months than escaping on a sea voyage? Sun on your face, drinks on tap, and you don't even need to miss a Fulham game, as most cruises actually show all the Premier League matches, even the 3 p.m. ones. My Kind of Cruise has unbeatable prices, and you can pay deposits as little as £1. So whether you're a seasoned cruiser or thinking about your first voyage, go to My Kind of Cruise, founded by a fellow Fulham fan. Download the app now from the Apple or Google Play Store, or head over to mykindofcruise.com and make sure you use the code Fulhamish at checkout for an exclusive discount.
Yeah, I just felt like we struggled to deal with the physicality and the size of Leeds. I mean, I knew it was coming, but then when I actually saw it on the pitch, I was just like, oh my God, every single one of you is a man mountain.
Yeah, giants.
It was quite agricultural in a way. I don't mean that too disrespectfully,
No,
but
and that's how you have to be. Like, I think in terms of, remember what we were like when we came up the first time?
we were a bit better than that.
We were better than that, 100%. But I think generally what I've said for the last 2 years is that the promoted clubs have not been physical enough, have not, won their duels in the middle of the pitch. Leeds have tried to stand up against that. They've tried to be like, right, okay, we're not going to be battered through the middle. We're not going to let teams run through us. That's a really sensible way of doing business. If you're Leeds, and to be honest, they probably should have come out with a point today. I know I said both teams deserve nothing, but if you're going to go both teams defended relatively well, then fine. Like, and a point for Leeds, and I was on, a Leeds podcast before this game. They were like, bite your hand off for a point. And I was like, I'm really refreshing to hear that, because I think for some years, or certain elements of the Leeds fan base were like, we've got to go and beat Fulham. At Fulham, it's Fulham. And like, that ain't how it works anymore. We've been here for a couple of seasons. We're an established mid-table Premier League club. You'd absolutely take a point. And I remember saying to him, I was like, I'm grateful that you've said that, because that's exactly the right way that you should be. We take the points away from home, try and win the games at home, and you'll stay up. And so I think that Leeds came not purely for a point. They came out with some attacking intent at times. I don't think there's enough quality in the front three, but like they came out with a game plan that was sensible for a team that have been newly promoted against a team that's been in the Premier League for a couple of years. That's fine. I don't think that should be criticised. But like, Fulham have to be better in terms of breaking those teams down, and ultimately I think we didn't really see that for the majority of the game today, and as I said at the top, we've kind of got away with one.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more positive than you are about the second half. Like, I felt like we grew into the match. I felt like there was only one team winning it in that final 25-30 minutes, and that's before the Kevin substitution, which we'll come on to. I felt like ultimately we controlled it, and I think what won Fulham the game today was our bench. It had quality. Every player we were able to bring on had quality. I thought Traore came on and did well. You mentioned Smith Rowe. Raul didn't really have enough time or opportunities to make all that much of an impact. I thought Kearney, it was good to just slightly release that midfield handbrake, bring Kearney on. Obviously, though, all eyes, all the headlines, all that anyone wants us to talk about is Kevin. I mean, I can't remember a time where the Hammersmith end chanted something like, get Kevin on. That was literally from about minute 46, the chant started. I was like, that's funny. That's not going to really by about minute 65, that's all the Hammersmith end was singing. I mean,
I thought it was really interesting. Like, the more it started to go, I was like, Marcus Silva is not going to like that. Marcus Silva is going to be like, no, like, I'm going to hold because you lot are trying to undermine me. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, as in, like, I'm not listening to you guys. This is my game plan. Like, and look, ultimately, he'll point to it and say it worked. Yeah.
I thought we played...
Hook or by crook, I think is the truth.
I actually think I loved Kevin.
We were better second half. You are right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Like, we were better. And I thought that we were more impressive when Smith Rowe came on. I thought that Kevin made a difference in that, not necessarily just him, being able to take on a man and get the ball around and cross the ball in, but suddenly you look at it from a slightly different perspective in that Adama has more space on the right-hand side. You know that a team, if there is two players on and there are Iwobi and Adama, and look, you know how much I love Alex Iwobi, but you're going to double down on the try and stop Adama on the break. But if you have two players there, someone who's beating a defender, you have to stretch your back line a little bit more. You have to think about more different things going on in different ways. And I do think that we grew into the game. I think there is a difference between saying that we got better and stronger. And actually, I thought we were okay first 20. And then we lost control of it.
Yeah.
But in terms of what happened in the latter stages, I do think we grew into the game, and I think you're right in that we looked the more likely team to try and make something happen. I just didn't see where the goal was coming from. I think it's probably where I would let it lie.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, look, I actually could see exactly where the goal was coming from. If it was coming from anyone, it was coming from bloody Kevin. He looked raw, and when we talked about this all summer, that's exactly what he is, you know. And I would be a bit nervous if he started against Brentford, because I didn't know how much he knew about Marco's system and the style of play, etc. But there is no doubting that the moment that the step over started, he did this cross that I don't even know how he did it. He trevelled it
Outside his foot.
Yeah, it was outrageous. Adama probably should have actually done a little bit of the header, considering how high he actually got with it. Then it was obviously Kevin that led to the goal. What a moment that would have been. I mean, it's an outrageously, good bit of skill. Good 1-2 from Sessegnon.
Very good from Sess.
I mean, I actually think everyone in the ground would have died and gone to Kevin if
Jack Kelly.
Jack Kevin. I mean, it's outrageous. It's just I'm very, very excited, but I also want to temper that and understand where Marco's coming from. I don't know if starting him was the right move today. I think we got it right.
Yeah, look, he's obviously an X factor, right? Like that's the key element. And when he came on, that one, the excitement in the ground, but two, then you're just like, oh, okay. And look, talking to various people and listening to different people speak about Kevin in the last couple of weeks, TC's obviously had a couple of interviews, and talking to various people who've watched Shakhtar down the years, they're like, wow, like he is quite special, but also it's not going to be plain sailing all the time. There are going to be games where he's frustrating, and you're absolutely right in that he's raw. Maybe Fulham need a little bit of rawness. In fact, I think that there is an argument to say that we were too sterile for 70 minutes before he came on. And so thus having one player who is just very much like that and able to take a player on and get the crowd off their feet. And let's talk about momentum, right? And momentum in games. I was talking to a friend of mine, Harry Brooks, about coaching and how you scout in person. And he was saying one thing you can't see through a TV screen is the way that a mood shifts when a player comes on. And obviously Fulham fans haven't seen Kevin play football before, on by and large, right? And the difference, that first, as you said, the first step over is the first sort of like acceleration. He's rapid, he's lightning quick, but also...
I mean, poor old Jayden Bogle was in a world of pain.
Who I think is excellent, by the way, who I think is a really, really good footballer and could be on a kind of Jed Spence arc. I mean, look, having that running at you at 70 minutes and be like, oh, I've just literally done 70 minutes of having to check back every time Alex Iwobi gets the ball and Cess overlapping and, all of the basics that Fulham do. But I mean, the excitement and the idea that Kevin and Anthony Robinson could be together on that flank quite soon is pretty... It's pretty unbelievable, isn't it? It's like, oh, okay, cool. And look, you don't want to judge a player on a 20-minute cameo appearance, especially in one where, as you say, Leeds were pegged back for those minutes. So you have that opportunity to go.
It was the ideal scenario in almost to make a cameo, right?
You want an X-factor player at that point, right? Like in a different way. So like it's amazing and it was great. And obviously the shot that leads to the corner, that leads to the goal. I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, like it's like my cousin's nan's,
Maybe. We praised Emil Smith-Rowe at Brighton for having a shot that led to the corner, that led to the goal.
No,
so,
agreed.
I mean...
that's not to take away from Kevin. I'm saying that, we're giving him a pre-assist here. It's maybe a stretch. But, look, he made a difference and he put Leeds back on the back foot and he shifted the momentum within the ground. And I think for me, that's the thing. Having a player who can come on and make it... And look, I think there was a little bit about this with Adama when he signed first. They'd come off the bench at 70 minutes and we'd be like, hey, let's go. What is it? And look, obviously, Adama hasn't been as brilliant for us as I think people might have hoped. He's been good, but not brilliant. And I think the excitement around Kevin, especially when you're a player that signs for that amount of money, club record fee, as we talked about on the podcast before, we haven't got great history with club record fees coming in and making positive differences. Like, the excitement around him, I think, was justified, and that, and potentially the impact that Chukwueze might have as another dynamic player that can run at people and get past them, I think is really exciting. So it's plenty of positives in that regard, I think.
Yeah, I think the final thing we'll just mention is the fact that is our first league win of
First time we've
the
been in the lead.
Yeah, and it wasn't for very long, but I'll take it because at least it meant that we were guaranteed 3 points. Obviously, clean sheets as well. We move into our rightful home of 10th, albeit temporarily. I think it was really important. I think if that had finished 0-0, Fulham was still winless. Then we had the pressure of going into the game against Brentford. It's a local derby. It's a winnable local derby. We know that, but still, it's a local derby.
It's a 50-50 game, right?
Yeah. It's really important that we got those 3 points. Obviously, also, we're not particularly great off the back of international breaks historically. I'm just relieved. And I have a funny feeling that actually it might be one of those wins that is not one that makes the end of season montages, but actually we'll look back and say it was incredibly important we got the 3 points that day. It feels like a little bit of a crisis averted, maybe.
Yeah, 100%. Maybe crisis is slightly too strong, but yes, I completely take your point, right? It's about the fact that we're on the board. It's the fact that we have moved out of the relegation zone, and I know you don't look at the table till 10 games in and all of that, but you need to beat the teams below you, and look, we talk about this quite a lot, but I don't think Fulham are going to get involved in a relegation scrap this year. But dropping points against teams that you think might well be in that, look, I don't know if Leeds are going to get relegated or not. I'm not saying that they will, I'm not saying that they won't. I think that they need more from an attacking perspective if they're going to stay up, but I think that they've given themselves a good basis to work from. And I think they will be, and I think that Leeds fans will probably agree with this as well, they're almost certainly going to be in the scrap. That doesn't mean that they'll necessarily be dragged down, but they'll probably be in a 6-7 team scrap. And I think there is going to be a real battle at the bottom this year. My one hope for Fulham this season is that we're away from it. We're not looking over our shoulders, that we're comfortably mid-table and we're able to secure ourselves in a place, because I think it is going to be way more competitive down the bottom, and that probably lends itself to the idea that the race for 7th or 8th or whatever the conference or Champions conference or Europa League spots are this year probably opens up a little bit more as well, because suddenly you don't have teams like us a little bit last year, but Bournemouth and Palace and those teams all been we'll whack the bottom 3, and therefore it's a guarantee every time that those teams battling. It probably opens up that conversation a little bit more as well, and so I think it's really important that we've got a win here, not just to get ourselves off the mark, but also to be we need a home win against teams that we hope will finish below us over the course of this season, and I think that's a reasonable thing to expect, considering that Leeds are newly promoted. So when you put it in that context, I think it was a really important one.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much for watching the Quick Take today. Jack Collins, thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, Sammy. Thank you.
Enjoy your Saturday night.
I will do.
It's always a bit sweeter when you've got 3 points on the board, isn't it?
I'm going on a football show on DR Sports now, and it's going to be a lot easier to sit around that panel, discuss the day's football, and just chat about it, knowing that Fulham have bagged 3 and are not kind of floundering at the bottom of the table anymore.
Yeah, well, I'm doing a very Jack Kelly thing and off for a curry. So that's my Saturday night. You whites.
You whites.